everybody. How are we feeling this morning? Good? Yeah, well, we're so glad you all are here. My name is Dan. I'm the pastor here at the Flora-Bama. Thanks for hanging out with us. Your very first time here. Welcome, Flora-Bama family. Help me welcome our first-time guests that are here with us. Thank you, guys, for being here. Ladies, what's up? So glad you all are here. If this is your very first time, we'd love to connect with you. So before you get out of here today at the end of the service, stop by one of our info tables on both sides of the tent. We've got a next step card. We'd love to get you connected in what's going on, keep you connected in what's going on, whether you're a local or you live somewhere else in the country or maybe even around the world. If you want to stay apprised on all that's happening here, you can do that there. We've got a free gift for you. We'd love to give you as well. When you walked in, you should have got one of these guys, one of our programs. If you didn't get one, just shoot your hand up. There's a bunch of information in there that you're going to need. All the scriptures we're using today are going to be in there as well. We've got a couple things coming up that I want to let you know about. First, this Friday is our Ladies' Night. Our Ladies' Night is this Friday night, December the 1st. Right, Bill? All right, December 1st, this Friday night is going to be awesome. He was going to nod no matter what I said. So, ladies, if you would like to be a part of what's going on this Friday night, we had a guys' night just a few weeks back. Of all the guys that were there, we had a blast. There's going to be food and fun. Ladies, it's a chance to get to know each other, hang out with one another, deepen some friendships, and get to know some brand new people. All you have to do is give us an email, and you can email anybody right there on the back of the program, preferably Amanda, since it's the ladies' night, but I'll take the emails, I guess, and send them her way. And so it's Friday night, December 1st, 6 p.m. Once you RSVP to Amanda's email, we'll shoot you. She'll give you all the details, time is 6 o'clock, location, what to bring, who to bring, invite as many ladies as you would like to be there. It's going to be an awesome time, ladies. We would love for you to be there. And listen, if this is your very first time, this is a great opportunity, if you're a lady in the room, to get connected the very first week you've been to church. So I encourage you to be there if you are able. If you've got your program, go ahead and open it up. I want to talk for just a moment about something that I was just telling the worship team, I am so excited about this Christmas project that we're doing. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but for the last couple of years, we've been involved with a project called All Is Bright. And we're kicking off a brand new series today called Merry and Bright. And we've got this amazing partnership with a ministry called God Behind Bars. And basically, you can check it out, godbehindbars.com. But basically, here's what happens. Every single week, God Behind Bars goes into prisons all over the country, but we've got one right up the road in Escambia County called Blackwater Prison. So you guys may have heard of it before. And they bring a full church service into Blackwater Prison and prisons all over Florida, all over the country. Full service, worship, preaching of God's word. They also bring in addiction recovery programs. They also help families reunite at Christmas, and that's what we get to be a part of. And so here's what happens. Every Christmas, right here in Blackwater Prison, families get to reunite with their incarcerated parents. And so these parents aren't able to buy gifts, and so we are going to help provide those gifts for these parents. And so the kids will never know that a church over there at the Flora-Bama or a group of people over here bought those gifts. They're gonna think they came right from their parents, even their parents don't have the money, the resources to get those gifts. And so at that time during Christmas, they're going to bring those families together. I've watched it happen. These little kids, the incarcerated parent steps forward with a bunch of gifts, and those kids step forward and they get reunited. And the mission of this whole thing is to once again make that parent the hero of the family. Guys, it is one of the most emotional things I've ever been a part of. It's an awesome opportunity for us to be a part of that. You can read this later, but one of the big things that we're doing is we're going to help provide those gifts, is what we're going to do as a church. We're going to help provide those gifts. So all the information's right there, all of it you need. Whether you want to sponsor one child, the average gift worked out to about $47. The really great thing about that is that's multiple gifts. There's just some numbers in there. So you can give by check or you can go online. The information stations right there. You can drop it in our giving stations. We're going to focus this next few weeks on giving towards that. And so we would love for you guys to be a part of that. You can drop all of that in the giving stations, or you can go online and do it. It is going to be awesome. And speaking of Christmas, I'm super excited. Our Christmas services are coming out. I can't believe we're talking about Christmas services already. But at tables, we've got our Christmas service invites, guys. I'm super pumped. This is the first time we're kind of letting everybody know what the service times are. Christmas Eve this year is on a Sunday. And so that works out well for us, you know. So we're going to do our 9 a.m. service like we always do. We're going to do our 11 a.m. service like we always do. And we're going to do those out on the beach. How sweet is that? If you were here for Easter, we're going to have a tent out there on the beach. The service I'm super excited about is we're also going to be doing a 4:30 sunset service on the beach. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me? That is going to be awesome. So Christmas Eve, December 24th, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 4:30 sunset, all out on the beach. We're going to be turning this tent in what we're calling our winter wonderland, and we're not going to tell you much more than that. It's going to be awesome. So grab some of these invites on your way out today, and invite some friends, invite family, invite neighbors and coworkers. Let's get these out and get some people under the tent out on the beach and share the message of Jesus' love, sending his son with them today. Yeah, deal. So grab some before you guys leave today. Now, I would be remiss if I did not mention to you my man standing behind me today. If you haven't been here, you don't know Brandon. This is my man Brandon Sanford. We've had people asking, where has Brandon been? Well, Brandon went and competed in our Special Olympics down in Orlando, and he is wearing his 16th gold medal that he has won. Congratulations, buddy. Yeah. So after service today, make sure if you see him, give him a big hug, congratulate him. Now here's what I would love to do. I know there's a bunch of people who have never been here before. Find someone you don't know, you don't recognize, stand up with me, give him a big hug, and welcome him to church.
Yeah, Christmas is so awesome. I mean, Thanksgiving. Come on, guys. What a great Thanksgiving. I got so much to be thankful for. You know, I decided to follow Jesus many years ago, and he never left me. He never forsaken me. It's such a, make that decision if you haven't already.
So glad you guys are hanging out with us. Does it feel good to sing Christmas music? How many of you, we're about to find out, I know we always say that this is a place where it's okay to not be okay and it's a no judgment zone, but I have a feeling there's about to be some judgment in this room when I ask this question. How many of you are just now putting up all the tree and you wait till after Thanksgiving to do all that mess? And you despise the people that put it up before Can't stand it. Those people who play it, you walk into a store, it's November 3rd, and they're playing Christmas music already in the department stores. How many guys that's cringeworthy to you? Can't handle it. Well, I'm one of those people, not the cringeworthy people. I start listening to Christmas music about October. I love it. At my house, we got to like hold ourselves till after Halloween to put up the Christmas tree. When Lindsay and I first got married, it was like, hey, it's a Thanksgiving deal. Because growing up, it was Thanksgiving or the day after. Then it was legal to start talking about Christmas, you know. And everyone else was insane, you know, and all that stuff. So when Lindsay and I got married, we were the same kind of way, you know. It was just, hey, maybe we do it on Thanksgiving. But then I remember one year, we may have had our first child, Abraham. But I remember it's like, hey, we don't want to, it was, you know, it's not like a lot of energy to put up the tree, but it's a little bit of energy. And after eating all that turkey and drinking all that eggnog, I don't know if you guys are eggnog fans, but I could drink it all year. And so we thought, well, let's do it the day before, and it felt kind of weird eating the turkey while the tree was already up. But now, man, we barely get into November. That tree is up, and we got Christmas music playing. One thing we've got to pull back on, though, is I start watching Christmas movies, all the kids' ones. I don't care. I like them all, man. We have to stop. We have to pull back because we'll end up watching The Grinch 45 times, and then come Christmas Eve, I just want to strangle my kid. Dad, can we watch The Grinch? No, you know. It's very interesting to hear people talk about it because this is something like the idea of Christmas and when you're able to do it runs deep with people. You know what I mean? You ever just be around someone that cannot stand Christmas cheer before it's like the legal time to do it, you know? Like very, very Ebenezer Scrooge-ish up until the day after, like Friday, you know, the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's pretty interesting. And, you know, Christmas, the holidays, I shouldn't even say just Christmas, but Thanksgiving, Christmas, that whole season is a pretty interesting time, really. And every year I have someone, I'm the wrong guy to talk to about this kind of stuff sometimes because I'm all in on the holiday season. I love it. It really is the most wonderful time of the year. I love it. That and March Madness basketball, really the two most wonderful times of the year, you know. And so for me, I don't get in the arguments. You know, people are always trying to, hey, man, can you believe the commercialization of Christmas? And I always go, yeah, man, I love it. I love walking into the stores, and there's Christmas stuff everywhere. I enjoy it. I like the music. I like the hoopla of the whole thing. I get sucked in big time. But I also realize that the holidays aren't always a super joyful time for everybody. And sometimes holidays bring up some grief that we've been carrying for a while, or the loss of a loved one that we think about. And so though the holiday season is supposed to be full of joy, like joy to the world, it's not always super joyful. And with some of those people that are really over the board joyful stress us out, you know, they annoy us, they get on our nerves, and then the entire thing, the family coming into town or us going to, that's supposed to be a relaxing time. Sometimes it is. Some of the greatest Christmas I ever had have been spent with family, just relaxing. Ain't there to impress anybody, you know, just hanging out. It doesn't matter. You can be yourself. You can wake up late. You don't feel, you know. And then there's been other times where I've been with family thinking, my God, get me out of here, man, you know. It's tough, and sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's not so great. And though it's supposed to be joyful, it's not always joyful. And I guess we could pull back even from the holidays and say that's kind of how life is, isn't it? That there are times in our lives that have been joyful. I mean, literally full of joy. I got to be a part of this beautiful wedding ceremony this weekend out on the beach. It was amazing. And I watched these two people commit their lives to one another, and the words could not express the joy that was on their faces, right? For those of you who are married or have been married at one time, you look back and you can remember saying those vows and exchanging those rings, and you can remember the joy that was in your heart. And something weird happens, some argument happens a week later, a month later, or something like that, or a couple hours later, you know? And you're like, what the heck happened? We were just, you know, what happened? Then there's these moments where I can remember, I've got a few kids, and I remember them each being born, and I just thought the joy of it all. And sometimes it can happen in the same day, this amazing joy, and then there's this something that happens, maybe a tragedy or just something that annoys you, and it's like, bam, that joy can leave you in a second, right? And the opposite can be true. You can have this just horrible, horrible day, but when the right person calls, or you get that card in the mail, or you run across someone you haven't seen forever at the store, and it can change a very, very tough day into have you ever experienced that before? Just having a bad day, then all of a sudden something happens, and it's as if you're a different person, just like that. Joy is a pretty interesting thing. I read a pretty interesting statistic lately about joy. A study was done about, I'm talking about America, the country that we live in, not worldwide. I don't know those stats, but last year, of all the people polled, 34% of the people polled said that they would consider themselves, on average, very joyful. 34%. That's a third of the country, right? This year, the same poll came out, it had dropped from 34% to 31%. Now, there's all kinds of things that could be attributed to. I have no idea. But what I do know is that's not moving forward. It's as if our joy is moving backwards. Interesting, between men and women, you would guess which one would say they're more joyful, men or women? Yeah, everyone just said women. Yeah, why is that? I don't know. But it's true. Ladies seem to be in this poll more joyful, higher average than men. Interesting, another interesting part of the study, age group that says they're the most joyful. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Yeah, so 65 and above, the most joyful. Right, kids out of the house, Medicare, Herb said, yeah. So grandkids, grandkids, right. But interesting, I thought the number would be so much bigger. So remember, last year 34%, this year so far 31%. Happiest group of people, 65 and above, and ladies too. But it only jumps from 34% to 41%. Regardless of your age, gender, less than half of the country believes that they would consider themselves very joyful. That's a pretty interesting statistic. Now, there's this great moment that's recorded in the book of Luke. Luke was not a disciple of Jesus, though he wrote one of the 4 Gospels. He wasn't a disciple of Jesus like Matthew was or Peter was, but Luke came along later and wrote this account of Jesus' life, and we would know it as the Christmas story. If you've got your program, why don't you go ahead and open it up. It's the very first few verses that we have to read there. Now, this is when Jesus had not been born quite yet, and Mary and Joseph had been traveling, and as the play goes, there was no room for them in the inn. Luke chapter 2, verse 6 says, while they were there, the time came for her, being Mary, her baby, to be born. She gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. That night, there were shepherds staying in the fields nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them, and they were terrified. But the angel reassured them, saying, don't be afraid. I bring you good news that will bring great joy to, I love this part, to all people. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born today in Bethlehem, the city of David. Interestingly enough, this angel's proclamation was about good news, and accompanying that good news was great joy, not for a few people, but for all people. Now, I'm just going to assume, though this was written a couple thousand years ago, all people actually meant all people. All people that were alive at that time during the birth of Christ, all people that had come before the birth of Christ, and all people, because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, because God is ever present. He's always present, whether it be the past, present, or future. God is, and so I would have to assume that all the people in the future, God saw ahead. and said that there's great news coming, there's good news coming, that I'm sending my son because I love you. It's John 3:16, because he loved us so much. And because of that good news, accompanying that good news would be great joy. Great joy. Not some joy, and it's going to be a really cool moment, because we can look back at our lives and we have memories that bring us great joy, don't we? I mean, I've got some great memories in the years that I've lived on this earth. We've all got some rough memories, but I love thinking about great memories. The interesting thing about those memories is I don't really carry that joy with me all the time. And now if I think about it, I smile, right? There's probably some events in your life, if you just sat and thought, a big smile, you probably wouldn't even realize it, but a big smile would come across your face. Because those moments carry such deep joy in your life. They carry in my life. But this message carries with it great joy. The message of God sending his son because he loved us, because he cares for us. That's the celebration of this Christmas season, the birth of the Messiah, the Savior of the world. Now, here's what I've noticed about myself. Now, I'm just talking real personal here. What I've noticed about myself is I live in one of three spots usually when it comes to joy. One of three spots. And I think we've all probably been there before. Two of them we probably live in. They carry the day. They're most of the time. We've all been in a place where we have been joy deficient. Have you ever just been completely zapped of joy? I mean, you've got none, right? None. Some of you guys are trying to hide it this morning. You're smiling. God bless you. I said a minute ago, turn and greet each other. You're like, yeah, just sit down, hey. But all of us have times in our lives, moments in our lives, events that happen that really suck joy away from us. We all do, and we'd be lying if we say we just walk around with a smile on our face all the time. Some of us wake up joy deficient until the caffeine is hooked up to the IV and it pumps through our body, We all have been to a place, and I don't want to, kind of dwell on this too long, but the truth is we probably will at some point in the future feel a little joy deficient. I wish it wasn't true. I wish we walked around with a smile all the time and things were always great, but my guess is if I was a betting man, and I lived in Vegas for a while, so I kind of am, but we're gonna face something that's gonna kind of suck the joy out of our lives. We're going to live joy deficient. So I've been there, right? I've been joy deficient. And then another place I lived a lot in, is being joy sufficient. I'm joyful, right? But I've got like just enough for me. You know what I'm saying? I got just enough for me. I ain't got time to be messing with your life. I got my own thing going on. I just came out of being joy deficient. Leave me alone. I'm like barely above water, I don't know if you've been there, and sometimes we come out of a tragedy that has been we've been deficient in joy, and there's enough space in between the event and today. We've been surrounded by enough people in our lives that have kind of held us up when we couldn't hold ourselves up. Aren't you grateful for those types of people that'll fight for you when you can't fight? Right? That'll pray for you when you've got no energy or strength. That'll come alongside you and lift you up when you feel like you can't stand anymore. And sometimes those people surround you and it's like, oh man, it's because of maybe the time or maybe because of the people. I feel very joy sufficient. You can muster a smile or you're just kind of in a good mood, and that can extend for long periods of time, right? And it seems like even sometimes when you're joy sufficient, even when some things come at you, you've built up enough sufficiency and joy where it doesn't bounce off you, but it's easier to handle, right? It's easier to handle. When you've got people surrounding you, it's a little bit easier to handle, and you don't get depleted as fast. And so I think sometimes we live joy deficient. I think sometimes we live joy sufficient, and a place I wish I lived more would be joy abundant. Now that's a place I would love to live in. I wish that would carry my day. I wish it would carry my day. And what I mean by joy abundant is that we're not drained at all, and we're not just sufficient. It's not like we're just keeping our head above water, but it's if we've got this unspeakable joy and things have come at us, but it almost is like it's, as they say, like water off a duck's back. Hey, no big deal, and you keep a smile on your face. And actually what starts to happen is, and you've probably noticed it before, you've been around people that are, maybe it was you, or maybe you watched somebody else walk into kind of a gloomy or just kind of a joy sufficient situation, and their joy starts to spill over. You know those kind of people? Right. They're a little annoying sometimes, but they're awesome most of the time, you know? Because sometimes you just want someone to be bummed out with you. You know what I mean? Like, cry with me. Be offended with me. You know? I watched on social media yesterday all of the Alabama fans and the Auburn fans just reaching out for love, you know, like, get me through this day. God help me, Jesus, you know. It was a tough day yesterday, folks, for a lot of people. And don't start any fights over here. People yelling War Eagle and Roll Tide. I don't want, wait till after, man. But sometimes we just kind of want people to be bummed out and hurt and frustrated with us. And so sometimes those, really joy abundant people are annoying, but most of the time we just need those people. We need those people when we're joy deficient to be joy abundant so their joy spills out on us. That's what I would call great joy. Great joy. Now, here's what I love about what Luke wrote about the birth of Jesus. What's interesting about what great joy was accompanied to or attached to had nothing to do with what anybody had. It had nothing to, as a matter of fact, Jesus didn't even have a room to be born in that night at the lodge. It had nothing to do with the possessions of Mary and Joseph. None of that was talked about when it came to great joy. Matter of fact, it had nothing to do with Joseph or Mary and their relationship. It had really not much to do when if you've seen the play, right, or read the story, there's this group of magi, wise men that came bearing gifts, but great joy was talked about before the gifts were ever given. Before the gifts were ever given, the gold, the frankincense, the myrrh, before it was ever given, there was great joy. And I think, I'll just say this, I'll speak for me. Oftentimes when I am wrapped up in gaining joy from something, I will ebb and flow out of being joy abundant, joy sufficient, joy deficient. Because it'll depend on what I have. And then if that one thing that gave me great joy is gone, then what happens? And the joy kind of sucks me down, and it's sucked out of my life, and I'm joy deficient again. And the one thing I really wanted is not there, and so then my joy is predicated on something I have. And sometimes our joy is predicated on someone, that other person. And when that person's gone, or that person, removes himself from our lives, or that person does me wrong, or whatever it is, then our joy, it's almost like our joy leaves with them because we're looking for joy in something or in someone. And if you want a roller coaster of joy in your life where sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, then place your hope for joy in something. And place your hope for joy in someone, a relationship, a person, a friendship, something. When you start to place that joy in someone else's hands, then it depends on them for you to be in one of those three spots in life. And when things are great, you and I both, like I said, I was at this wedding, but when Lindsay and I were married, I was I can remember that day like it was, I don't even need pictures to remember that day. I'm still that young, Some of you guys need the pictures, And I think back, I can close my eyes and picture what happened. And the memories bring me great joy. But on that day was great joy. I was standing in front of someone that I love, that I was committing my life to, and that person had the guts to do the same thing, to commit their life to me. But we all know, if you've ever been in any relationship, romantic, friendship, whatever, things aren't just the way they are when you're standing at that altar. for the rest of the relationship. It's just not the way it is. And if we start to place our joy, our hope for joy in that person, what happens when that person's gone? Then they've got our joy. So Luke writes that these angels say, you want great joy? You want great joy? Not deficiency of joy, not even just sufficiency of joy. We're talking about abundant joy, great joy. It comes through the person of Jesus Christ. And the good news that God loved us so much that he gave his one and only Son. I love that this message, the angel said, is for all people. For religious people and non-religious people. For spiritual people and not spiritual people. For church people and non-church people, or used to be church people. For Bible scholars and someone who's never cracked the Bible open ever. It's good news that brings great joy for all people. For sinner, for saint, for you, and for me. It's for all people. And when we place our hope for joy in the hands of Jesus, we are promised great joy. Not an easy life. Let me be super clear. Not an easy life, not a problem-free year, not a relationship that never has any issues, none of that. God's not guaranteeing you perfection. What he's guaranteeing you is in the middle of whatever, chaos or celebration, you can have great joy. Because your joy is not determined by what's happening around you, it's by what God is doing in you. And that person can walk away and you can be sad and cry, and there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm not saying is you can never grieve, you can never be bummed out. That's what I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that because you haven't placed your joy in something, when something gets taken away, your joy doesn't go trailing along with it. And because you're not placing your hope for joy in that person, if that person's there or if that person's not there, or if you're at odds with that person, it won't matter because your joy has not been placed in that person. Now, the truth is we have a very real spiritual enemy. The Bible calls him Satan, the devil, Lucifer. And if there's one thing the enemy's after, it's our joy. The very last verse in your program says this. It's John chapter 10, verse 10, written by one of Jesus' closest friends, one of his 12 disciples. If you're looking for a great place to start reading the Bible, where should I start reading? The book of John. It's the fourth book in the New Testament. It's a story of Jesus' life written by a first-hand account buddy. John chapter 10, verse 10 says this, the thief, he's speaking of Satan, the devil, our spiritual enemy. The thief does not even come. The enemy's not even going to show up except to steal and to kill and to destroy. Before we get to the last part, the best part of that verse is, I want you to know that the enemy is after your joy. He would love to steal it from you. He'd love to squash it and destroy your joy. Because if he can rip the joy out of your heart, he's got you. He's got you. It's tough. Have you ever been absolutely just joy deficient? Sometimes it's tough to get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes it's tough to carry on a conversation. Sometimes it's difficult to even want to talk to the Lord, isn't it? When you're just sucked of joy. And because he's after us, because he's after our lives, if he can start with our joy, he's got us. But here's the promise, the second half of the verse. And this is Jesus talking. I have come that you may have life and that you may have it more abundantly. Abundant life, abundant joy comes from Christ. Comes from Christ. We just sang the song, Joy to the World, right? Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. When we open up our hearts to the good news of Jesus, he fills us with great joy. A joy that can't be stolen. A joy that can't be removed. A joy that is stable and founded in Christ, so that regardless of what's happening around us, that joy remains in us. That joy remains in us. Abundant joy is the type of joy, great joy is the type of joy that isn't just enough for us, but it starts to spill over on the people around us. You want to find out where you're at? You want to find out where you're at? Look at the people you're closest to. When you're around them, do they also seem to have great joy? It may be because of the joy that's in you spilling over onto them. Or are the people you're around seem sometimes when you're around them, they seem kind of sucked of joy. You may be sucking the joy out of their lives. That was even meant to be funny. But it is, isn't it? It's true. When we're deficient of joy, we tend to suck the joy out of others. But when we're abundant in joy, it spills out onto the people around. Don't you want to be that person? Wouldn't that be awesome to be the type of person that when you walk into a room, when I walk into a room, when we're around people, joy shows up with us. I had an interesting interaction this past week. I was in Las Vegas this past week and hanging out with our Central family in Vegas, and our Central Church family, and I was having coffee with a friend, Justin. We were just talking and catching up. I hadn't seen him in about a year, and there was a couple guys sitting right over here that had asked us for some money, for some food. We were able to jump into a conversation with them. It was really this just beautiful moment, right? Just got to get to know them and find out their names, find out their story a little bit. If you're around me very much, my favorite question to ask people is, hey, what's your story? You know, and just this really cool story and tough story and how he ended up on the streets. And so after we hung out for a little bit, talked, got some food, ate together, and he just couldn't stop thanking us, you know. I was like, hey, honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal. You'd have done the same for me, kind of that conversation, you know. But he taught me something that day, that he has a goal every single day. And I want to read this because I don't want to get it wrong. It was such a beautiful moment. I was in Vegas for about a week, and I've been back for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, and this hasn't left my mind since that moment. He said, Dan, I have got one goal every single day, and here's what he said. He goes, my goal every day is to find someone and say something nice to them. To find someone and do something nice for them. And to find someone not smiling and make them smile. I want to read those again. Every day to say something nice, do something nice, and make someone smile. That is a life lived with abundant joy. It's tough to make someone else smile when our hearts aren't full of joy, is it? It's really tough to muster up the energy to do something nice for somebody when you don't really feel like moving forward because that person has trashed your joy, or that thing that you had is gone, and so your joy has left with it. It's possible to say something nice to someone when you're not feeling the love or the joy, but it's a lot more difficult. But a person that has been filled with Christ's joy, great joy, abundant joy, saying something nice, doing something nice. What was the third one? Thank you. Making someone smile is an overflow of abundant joy that you can't contain. It just kind of oozes out of you into the world around us. Let every heart prepare him room. And when you open up your heart to the good news, it is always accompanied by great joy. I don't want to minimize that you may be joy deficient today. I don't want to minimize that. I don't want to minimize the fact that you are walking through hell right now. I get it. And if you're here today and you may not be walking through it, you may be walking through it at one or another point in your life. My challenge to you and to me today is not to to muster up joy, to work really hard and kind of like, just kind of will the joy to come. The challenge today is to make room in our hearts for the message of Jesus Christ, because when that comes, great joy is accompanied. My prayer today, for myself, for my wife, for my family, is that we would live in such a way that joy oozes out of us everywhere we go, abundant joy. And I realize the only way that happens is when Christ's joy fills our heart to overflow. We move from being joy deficient or just barely above joy sufficient to joy abundant. And that's my prayer for us today. Would you bow your heads with me? I would love to pray that for all of us. Father, I'm so grateful that joy is not something we have to try to work up, muster up, will up on our own. But that great joy comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's the good news that the angels spoke about, that the Savior of the world has come to bring great joy to all people. And so, Father, I pray for all of us people here today. May our hearts be filled with Jesus. May our lives be overflowing with joy. And no matter what we face, no matter what stuff we do or don't have, or the people that we do or don't have in our lives, that the joy in us would be greater than what's going on around us. God, I pray that be true about me. I pray it be true about my family. I pray it be true about our church family. I pray this in Jesus' name. The Flora-Bama family said, amen. Listen, guys, before you get out of here today, grab some of our Christmas invites. Make plans now to be there. And listen, take your program home. Read up on Merry and Bright. Let's do this together and help some incarcerated parents' kids have the greatest Christmas of their lives. I don't know what you're going to face this week, but I do know this. Romans 8 tells us, if God is for us, who can be against us? We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Some glad morning when this life is over.